Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 62, May 17th, 2019, Talking to Your Body for the Best Fertility Awareness Towards Pregnancy. What is body talk? How can speaking and listening with your body provide deeper healing in conception? What does Spirit Baby wants you to understand in conception and into pregnancy? I have a special guest. Deanne Crew is the owner and practitioner of Collective Healing in Vernon, British Columbia, Canada. She is a certified body talk practitioner and Spirit Baby medium working on clients with general health concerns and a specialized focus on fertility healing with the Spirit Babies. Deanne works with clients worldwide offering distant phone sessions and in-person treatments for those that prefer to travel to her clinic space. Outside of work, Deanne balances her family life, which includes a wonderful husband of 4 years and a rambunctious 1.5-year-old daughter. Energetic medicine keeps her humble and in awe of the world around her as she continues to grow her practice and her studies. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. I'm very excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, I have to share. I mean, it was so exciting when we met. It was like a week or two ago, and things move so quick in life. And Deanne came for me for a Spirit Baby session, and one of the first things, and we talked about this before. She gave me permission to share. One of the first things that I saw right away was I have no idea. She didn't send me her website, no information. And I was like, wow, there's a certain way that I see when someone I call is a Spirit Baby reader. There's someone that has that connection to that world. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? She's got these babies around her. What's happening? And then I see it as a bright light. It's kind of interesting. I see it as this arc. If you can see like an arc of a rainbow, but it's just all light. And I could see the babies moving in and out. And I'm going, wait a second. I'm like, do you talk to babies? And maybe you do, maybe you don't. And then it was like, later now we know, it's confirmed that she does.
Yes.
Connect with. There you go. I was like, okay. And that's so wonderful. And I love that. And I'm always, connecting with other, baby intuitives, readers. There's so many names, but not really. I remember years ago, people were like, oh, you're a pre-birth communicator. I was like, oh, that sounds so I don't know, clinical or and so
long.
But and so we met that, and I was so interested in the things that she was sharing, and I do want to hear more about, the things that you do and how you connect with that, the healing of conception and body talk. I feel like I've met people that have done body talk throughout the years. But I feel like it slips my mind right now. What is the depth and detail of this? And I wonder if it's similar to the somatic, psychological kind of work a little bit. Or maybe it's under that umbrella.
It can be, because, body talk is, like most, a holistic modality, right? So body, mind, spirit, emotion. And so what it does is that when the body is sick, it breaks down its own cellular communication. And then it's like something's glitching or missing or compromised. And so what I love about body talk is that we give a lot of the power back to the client. We say, your body can heal itself. And really, as a practitioner, we're going in and just identifying where that cellular communication is broken down. And the misalignment and where the misalignment is. So the example that I always give is somebody comes in and says, I was in a car accident. My knees are so sore. I've had multiple surgeries. I, go to physiotherapy and I still just can't get the strength back. And so we talk, and, you know, it's kind of starting to put their puzzle piece together. There's a car accident, you know, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, you know, I've moved on. It's been 5 years. But once we get them on the table, we really realize that there's still a lot of fear trapped in the knees from that car accident. And the knees, you know, are connected to, say, a kidney meridian. So that's another place of communication breakdown is through the kidney meridian. And so then what would happen is, you know, we'd continue to talk, and then they'd say, oh, yeah, you know, my sister was in the car with me too, and she suffered whiplash, and I just feel like a terrible amount of guilt about that. So not only are they carrying fear about the car accident, but they're also feeling really heavy about the fact that their sister had an injury or whatnot. So not only are we just dealing with one person, we're almost dealing with the sister's energy here. So by the time we're done, we've collected all this information about sort of the misalignment, if you want to call it that. And then the client's like, oh, yeah, I didn't realize that, it was really tied to the location. Every time I walk by there, I get anxiety and, all these things. And so the body ends up highlighting all the places that are, holding this story, or, we're missing pieces. Now we've put it all together, and then the body, it can kind of almost, like I call it, like it surfaces to the top, and then the body can start to release, process out, and let go. And then the client, will come back many weeks later and say, I can do stairs again. I have strength in my knees. And so, yeah, I guess, if you're talking about it from an emotional perspective, that's definitely a part of it, but we treat it because we cannot separate the physical from the mental or the emotional or the spiritual body, really. And so you're just collecting that person's own individual story and making sense to them or to their body why it's misaligned. And there's great wisdom in getting the ahas. Like when Oprah always talked about, there's the aha. And so that's a lot of what happens in session. I find when I'm talking with clients, they'll go, oh, yes, I didn't even think about that part of it, and then that's the missing piece that they needed in order for their body to release it. So that's,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I was going to say was that I think what's really cool with Body Talk too is that it's like a permission-based modality too. So, if a client comes in and they're really not comfortable wanting to deal with a certain issue or it's not time, it just won't come up in session, it just, I'm not, I don't have it in my information, intuition. Their own innate is not going to reveal it because it's just not time. Everything has a time and a place and has, that right space to bring forth the healing. And, in any type of healing work, there's always the layered onion, right? And so it will just come up later when probably the client's more comfortable or other stuff needed to be, removed first in order to kind of then deal with that issue. So there's never anything forceful about this modality, which I really like. And the reason why I mix it with fertility so much is because you can use other modalities with Body Talk. It'll like all of a sudden pause and go, oh, I can go into my other, quote unquote toolbox and, access information there to use both. And so what really happened was when I started practicing Body Talk, I realized there was like all these children around, obviously in spirit. And whether clients were struggling with fertility or, they weren't, their babies were there. And I was like, what is this? And I sort of knew what it was because I had connected to mine 6 years probably prior at that time. That was back in, I want to say 2014, I think. And I had already connected to mine. I was trying to figure out my own. I didn't know it was spirit baby work. I didn't know that's what it was called, but she was there. And so, yeah, so once I kind of got into it, I thought, this is such fascinating work. And I think, and Kelly, you'll probably agree with me, I think the biggest thing I take away from spirit baby work is that it's so, I don't know if it's like humbling or I feel it's so different than the mediumship work on say I call the other side, where loved ones have been passed on. There's an excitement in the air with spirit babies. There's a gentleness, but also like kind of this playfulness that happens. And, you know, anytime we're around the innocence of children, we just feel so humble and reminded about being in the moment and reminded about being, you know, childlike ourselves. And so I think there's just such a beautiful energy that I always feel really grateful about with it, I think, which kind of keeps me open to that world maybe too, as like, as a practitioner of it. But yeah, so, so back to a little bit of my story with spirit babies too. I had met my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time. We were together a year in, and we decided to do a joint meditation, and it was just going to be very, you know, fun and easygoing. He was going to show me how he meditates. I was going to show him how I meditate, and then before I know it, there was this little girl that appeared, and I'm quite a clairvoyant, so I was seeing her, and I was instantly brought to tears. And my husband just looked at me with these big eyes, like, you know, like have you lost it? Like, what's going on here? And I was just in awe, but I couldn't figure out like who she was. I'm like, 'cause she looked so much like me, and I thought, like, is this more inner child work? What's going on here? And it took me a couple of days to really figure out who she was, why she was there. And there was no talking. Like, we did not talk. She just played hide and seek for probably a good 3 or 4 days. And it kind of gave me that space to really process and figure out who she was. And it just came to me. I was like, oh, this is our child. And she really came to both Keith and I. A lot of souls and spirits I see will, you know, can come to just the individual rather than a couple itself. And, so, you know, there she was. And I, you know, then I confronted and telling my husband, I think our baby's here. And he's like, oh, cool. You know, we had talked about kids, but obviously we were a ways from that. And, over those years, you know, it just became really about, getting to know her. Obviously communication started more than just the playful hide and seek. We ended up talking. We had a lot of serious conversations. She became like a really good friend. And a friend that I missed. I would wake up if I dreamt of her, and I would just miss her, like soul cringing miss her. I'd have a lot of dreams of breastfeeding her, and I'd wake up and yearn for her. And it was just this beautiful relationship. And I thought, does everybody go through this? And I still I didn't take to Google. I didn't look at like what I was seeing or what I was witnessing. I just took it for what it was. And when I started the body talk, and I was dealing with, you know, other clients, and their spirit babies coming in. I actually had a really good friend who we were working quite closely with, her spirit baby, and she was having a lot of infertility, prolonged infertility experiences. And, you know, one day she's like, I think you need to read this. And it was Walter McEachin's book, Spirit Babies, How to Communicate with the Child You're Meant to Have. And she goes, you know, everything you're doing is in this book pretty much, right? And so I started reading it, and I just felt such an aha moment, like, oh, there's something going on here, and I can finally put like 2 and 2 together. And just everything made sense. I didn't feel like, I always knew I wasn't crazy, but you know, you kind of just, your own trust gets in the way, and you're trying to think like, what is really, like, just what is this? What is this realm? And that's where really, I think things took off. I settled into how exciting and how fascinating that realm was, and I needed to learn more. And so pretty much everything I, have done up to this point is a lot of self-study, a lot of listening, sitting back and waiting for the spirit babies to approach and what they have to say. I do, you know, there's a lot of books out there about conception and preconception and things like that, which are really great reads and some fascinating information too. So, you know, that's a little bit of a study protocol of mine as well. But and I've just grown with it. So then, where the spirit baby meets the body talk is completely fascinating, because originally clients will come to me because they have infertility. And I hate that word, but we'll just call it that. They're feeling blocked with their fertility. And, you know, so we'll start. So obviously I explain to them what I do now, spirit baby mediumship work, and offer that protocol first to connect them with their spirit baby. But then what happens is I can overlap my work. So I'll oftentimes be in a reading with the spirit babies and my client, and then my spirit baby, you know, is say pointing to the mother's body or the father's body. There's a misalignment somewhere, maybe physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever holistic place, maybe multiple places. And so when I go and I tune in, then I can do some healing work with the body talk. So now I'm working with the spirit babies and body talk to not only help heal and prepare the mother and father, but it's very much baby led. So it feels like it's in alignment with what the baby would need as well. And then, you know, at the same time, if the baby's like, you know, I'm really happy today, there's nothing going on, then I can switch and just do some like fine tuning with body talk work for the client, whether, again, it's the mother or the father. Sometimes I get the whole family comes in. So that's
let me, I want to break your energy here for a moment because there's so many questions that I have.
Yes, I know.
I was waiting for a little pause. I was like, oh, she's going to keep going.
I'll keep going.
And so, because I want to take it back to the beginning, you know, looking at body talk, because when you were talking about, you know, the body, the information, you know, and I understand that, but I didn't hear you use the word trauma, but, you know, because let's say you're in an accident and there's trauma in your knees, is that not the vocabulary that's looked at because the trauma could be holding back the peace, or I don't want to speak for that. What is is that what you're looking at as, or you're not really, because maybe that's another energy that feels.
No, totally. And so I would call it for myself is more of like a misalignment or a disease, you know, how they, in the metaphysics, it's disease. Body talk, you know, also uses like problem spots, but problem is kind of in quotations because you never really want to fully identify and hold on to the place that is where the disease is. Like you almost don't want it to be your identity. I always say that it's the sore knees, it's the autoimmune disease, it's the infertility. It's never mine. So as soon as we put mine in there, it becomes like this ownership and it's an identity thing.
Yeah.
So I find, and I don't know if that's necessarily totally like the body talk. That's how I also incorporate that into my practice. I think that's really important. But yeah, I mean, you could use that vocabulary, definitely trauma. You know, there's trauma on all levels, not just the car accident. You know, there's trauma when it comes to, you know, anything around mental health, you know, severe anxiety and depression, like any type of brain trauma or concussions. You look at digestive disorders that, you know, can really spiral into, say, disorderly eating trauma. I mean, there is so much trauma around us, really. It's just, like you said, it's kind of just a really strong word. So I would say more of a misalignment.
Yeah, I like misalignment. It just seems so gentle. But just when I heard you talk, I'm like, I wonder if we're talking, if that's like more traumatic events. Like you said, it doesn't have to be an injury. It could be a sickness, could be traumatizing.
Totally.
Or cancer in the body is traumatizing. But it's like, but I know, you know, of course, you know, linguistics, right, using certain words and energy. And because then, you know, and I hear what you're saying, and I know a lot of people can identify with this is the hardest thing, it's not owning something, right? So women in conception, I have low ovarian reserve. Yes. I have endometriosis. And maybe, you know, I know, of course, we know it's hard because it becomes chronic. And then it's like, well, there's my endometriosis. There's me and my friend. Not that it's like a desirable, like, oh, I want this, but I know, and I'm sure you have seen it too, like there's always a time space for those things. Like where did this energy begin? And, you know, and it can take much awareness and deeper work around the release of those things. And, and so it sounds like you were saying, No,
I was just going to say, so back to that, like when you're talking about timing, back to the car accident scenario, what could also be part of that story is that that person was in another traumatic car accident when they were 4. So not only was it happening at like 22, now it's also happening at 4. So there's more to that story. So time, I mean, with body talk, it's like so inclusive to past, present, and maybe possibly future time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so your body talk work has shifted you into, you know, I want to go to your story with your own child. I feel like I loved when you were talking about it. It felt so warm and joyful. And I feel like it's really important for those tuning in to hear this piece that you said, my child was playing hide and seek with me. And we were just kind of, you were being present and open in your heart space in a way that you were just kind of being. And what I see a lot, and I'm sure you see it as well, is some women or couples, they're pushing very hard. Like the peekaboo is not enough. That's communication. Like I want something more, you know, telling. And spirit baby energy, you know, as I've experienced this world, it is very innocent. It is very playful. And some things aren't going to be, you know, as I joke around and say, like Jesus smashing through the window, like, like, you know, like give me something more. And I see women going year after year after year after year, going, where the hell is my baby? And what are they saying? And then some women are like, no, I'm communicating, but I don't understand. And all these things come up. And so I feel like it's really important. And I love how you shared your own story, is that babies are playful. I've seen babies jump roping. I've seen them playing with horses, digging. And it's like, and I know, and sometimes I'm like, I'm sure people are like, oh, what the heck is that? You know, what is this supposed to be? Or, you know, what is this about? But it is that innocent and that.
Well, and it's I think it's an indicator of some of their personality traits too. You know, and so, and then like kind of back to when you said that, you know, we want to push them to talk and everything. And so look at it this way too, those souls on the other side, in the spirit realm are, you know, still very elevated spiritually, right? So they will understand more of what we need than what we know we need, right? So if they're giving us quiet time and space, oh, well, maybe that's a mirror for me that I just need quiet time and space with you. Like maybe I'm not supposed to know anything. Maybe everything is okay. And we can just sit and be together. And how, you know, how freeing and calming is that? I don't have to think about anything or work anything out. Like we're good right now. Let's just take time. I mean, it's unrealistic that when you're with somebody that you love, that you're talking the whole time. That there will be pauses, there will be lapses of conversation, and you can just be with that person. So I think that's important to know, is that maybe, you know, if we're trying to force them to be a certain communication style with us at a certain time, or we really need an answer, maybe we're not supposed to have that answer right now. So kind of putting that trust back into that other side, knowing that they also have some of our best interests at heart too. And know what we need more than sometimes what we do. It's a little like, I don't even know if caretaking is the right word, but it can be used. Caretaking can be used. I've seen it where the soul babies are like, hey, let mom come to me for this, or let dad come to me for this. I can help. And it's not a burden like it would be our children in the physical life, or the physical earthbound energy. It's like almost like an angelic guidance, sort of how I perceive it. Yeah.
Like a spirit baby guide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, you know, we can have that and I think how cool that we can have that relationship mixed with getting to know our baby, you know, and having playful energy, and then also having, like, you know, deep conversations, or, you know, just hugs, or, you know, however it's going to appear for that person or feel for that person. Yeah, so I think I always try to tell my clients that there really is no boundaries.
I know, you know, what you're saying too, you know, I see a lot of the whole, you know, a lot of people must tell you this too, like, tell my baby I love them. It's like, well, I don't have to tell them that. You do it all the time, and you do it, and it's not about that. People think that, well, maybe I don't love enough, so my baby doesn't want to come into my life. It's interesting what the psyche does of the human being, and how sabotaging and really quietly abusive it can be. And then what I see a lot of, and I'm sure you do too, is women and couples shut down, and they suddenly feel like they have no connection to anything. Like some say, hey, I have no connection to a baby at all. But I feel like that begins with the individual. Then where's the self-awareness to allow yourselves, as you said, to connect with the spirit world in a way that's not this far off thing, right? It's like it's not like another planet.
Yeah,
It feels unachievable, or if the distance feels unattainable. But then there's the work, right? The work to be done to just open to it. And then, you were connecting with your daughter for quite some time. And I love how you shared about the joy and connection. I know with my son, I didn't have the yearning joyfulness as you did, but I did notice that there was an energy with me probably 5 years before I even considered conceiving and open to it. And again, I've shared in other podcasts, I have a lot of fears and phobias around pregnancy and conception. So it wasn't, for me, it was more like, it was done through the lens of fear and uncertainty, like what, this being's here, what am I doing? And I found a lot of joy, and more in pregnancy, of connecting with his soul in a way that felt like that relationship. It was fun, it was playful, and it was ongoing to the point where I was like, I'm going to miss that, which sounds weird, right? Then I'm like, but I'm going to give birth to him. But it was such a different dynamic. And like you say, this, the spirit world, that ability, that I like to use the word elevation, so much nicer than people say high vibration. I can't stand that word, high vibration. It drives me crazy because then it feels competitive. Yes. Because when I see it, when I see this is Kelly's interpretation, and I've made this clear many times. When I see high vibrational beings, they don't want to be born. So again, it's probably all just words. So they would develop if the vibration is so high, and I call them more crystalline energy children, where they have translucent eyes and hair. I don't know if you've ever connected with a vibration of a baby where you're like, they don't feel very earth connected. Yeah. It's like they're doing their thing and they're like happy and good. And I was like, oh boy, sometimes they're like, but I'm right here. Yeah. The parents are like, we miss you. And I'm right here. Like, it's no big deal. Like, we're still here. Like, we're a big family. And, the human mind's like, but you're not here. I have dealt with some of those. And they are harder to kind of they don't want to integrate. Yeah, they don't. It takes some time, or they may never do it.
Right. Or it would take a lot of work for the family to, like we talked about, elevate their vibration and do a lot of their work. Yeah. And I always say, like, I think a lot of, back to that word of infertility, but infertility challenges can elevate one's vibration too. Like, for other people, it might be an illness or, a trauma, right? Emotional trauma that kind of transforms their spiritual body in a way, if they let it. I will say that if they let it and they turn that way rather than turning destructive. But if they let it, and the same with this fertility piece, that can really elevate somebody to bring in that vibration, and that patience. And that's kind of like, I almost think like a bit of a grooming that they go through. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to understand or, it's like that pill to swallow. Like, why do I have to do this work? Like, I just want my baby here. Right. And then,
only that
like,
easy.
right. And then I kind of like, but then, the more I work with them, you'll see them in a year or 2 years and their languaging is a lot different. Their body language is different around it. And you're like, oh no, like this is shifting for them. It just takes some time. And everybody, how fast they would really get there is, that own person's really journey and their own, and how much they're wanting to do the work too. Right.
And I feel like it's really fun. I use the word fun. I feel like it's really fun to, when I'm with someone for quite some time and a client that's just, either they're single, doing it on their own, which is very tricky, or they're in partnership, and I begin to see their energy change in really bigger ways. And I go, oh, yes, this is the piece. This is the baby coming through. But before it was like, it's such an energetic vibration to me that it's like you almost can't, you don't know where it is. It's like, something shifted. And I go, this is, and I wish I can tell all my clients, like, oh, something's shifting. I go, you're of course we're always shifting. But when I start seeing really bigger things, I'm like, oh, something is different. What do you feel about that? And then they'll agree that there's almost like an ease. It's like there's a next notch in the level of their own consciousness. And I've been saying for, I don't know how long I've been doing this, more than 5 years, that there's an awakening process that happens with individuals or couples on the conception journey, and that babies do come to different people at different times. We tend to always look at the male and female relationship, but that's not true. There's other ways, that babies are coming into lives of people all the time. and even some through loss, which is, another conversation, another area, that we have to acknowledge, not just the loss of no conception, but the loss of beings through miscarriage, through even later loss of stillbirth. And I don't know what you can speak about that.
Yeah, I think why I'm so drawn to this work is because of those key, points you just brought up: miscarriage, loss, the struggle that the family goes through when they don't understand why, and then there's the self-blame, there's guilt, there's all of it, especially when there's been so much time leading up to it. So I think that's why I feel very drawn into this, is because I feel like if there's a different, back to the wording, the communication, if there's different verbiage to maybe put to a miscarriage or to put to a loss, and an understanding with that maybe that can transform that pain into like a serenity or a surrendering. And because with my belief system with this, because I've seen it so much, is that, a lot of times with miscarriages or loss, that the baby is never lost. The soul is still there. The physical body is, just the physical at that point. It's disengaged. And so, a miscarriage is, a loss definitely of the physical, and you do mourn the emotional aspects of all of the things that you started to set up in place, the experiences that came with that. So you do mourn the emotional part of what your due date would have looked like. I would have been pregnant during the summer, all those things, and, all the excitement around it. I think you do mourn that, but it's not to say that that would always come back. And more often than not, the baby's like totally fine. Like the soul of the baby's like, oh, it just wasn't right for me, Mom. I've got contracts too. Or Dad, I always say Mom because it's predominantly female that, I work with. But I think that's a big thing is explaining contracts with clients with this, is that back to an equal partnership, the child, the soul baby, has just as much choice as we do. And so sometimes I always say, like, it's just a simple gender issue, that soul was like, I really wanted to be male. I can't be in a female body. The female body looked very healthy, and I'm a firstborn child, so I don't want to bring another soul to take that body. So can I please wait? And they and so it's like sometimes it's just a simple communication at that point with the client that, it's more about the body wasn't the right one for this baby. Miscarriage can also be, something, it can be very much spiritual, like with the soul baby, but I also think miscarriage can be along the lines of just the physical health of the mother, or chromosomal. And that I can often sometimes be revealed to me in session too, where it's like, oh, have you checked your, iron stores or your progesterone levels or something like that, where it's becomes more of a physical issue for the mother to figure out. And I mean, there could be lots more with the miscarriage. Those are some of more of the key components. I've even had it, actually. This is really fascinating, and I know this isn't totally along the line, but I want to share it quickly. I've had it where a client was pregnant, and I saw the spirit baby, and she was like, but she wasn't totally connecting, right? Because I find spirit babies don't fully incarnate into the body. Well, it varies. I see all different times, even as late as 3 years of age, they can be not fully in their body. But so wasn't quite really identifying with this body, and I thought, what is going on? So then the client comes back to me, and she's like 4 months pregnant, and it's like, oh, here I am. Here, I'm the firstborn. He's like, in walks this new baby, and he's like, this is my body. I'll take it from here. So I've seen it where another spirit baby actually still keeps alive a physical body, waiting for the perfect soul, the next soul to come in to take over. That's more right for that body. So that, and if maybe there wasn't somebody else to come in and it just wasn't time, maybe that would have resulted in miscarriage, right? Or a later term miscarriage.
And the order, the babies have a certain order that sounds like they want to come into. Like,
yes,
wait a second.
There's an order.
And I always feel like miscarriage is a jump start to something in their lives, right? The individual, like, what's happening? Like, what is this? Yeah. It's just like this burst of energy and this loss. And I always find that women with miscarriage, they tend to have something going on in their life that's very powerful and meaningful. If it's like, career, relationship, sickness, something, it's like, what is that boost of energy? And even when you're talking about, I want to say it was recent with this woman in person, it was quite phenomenal that energetically on the most deepest level, she kept going through miscarriage because, and it was so profound to me to even see this, she liked being pregnant. This doesn't even make sense. But she actually confessed that it was just so overwhelmingly euphoric and enjoyable that it's like, well, part of her wanted to be in a longer pregnancy because it's only 9 months, but it's not like a conscious choice, like, oh, I don't want to be pregnant. It's like very deep. And there was a pattern. And then even when you were saying before, it reminds me, I actually had a baby once say her progesterone levels will not balance out because I'm not going to let them. So I was like, whoa. Oh. So it's like, because there was something, I was like, and that was profound too, because I'm going, okay, I was like, that's interesting. So how can she fight against her body in some way if the baby's, and I don't know, it was like, there was so much more to that particular story, because it is, like, as you said, it is very individual. There's no like, this is like, I'm sure you are, I'm always surprised.
Oh, I know, me too. But,
I never would have thought of that.
I've even had it where I've gotten, you get to know the spirit baby when you're working with the client for a while, and and then all of a sudden the spirit baby goes, well, I know she really wants to conceive. Well, and again, back to the mother. I know she really wants to conceive, and like now, I'm gonna go, and a new spirit baby's gonna come in because they'll be easier. So I've seen a lot of them trade in, and I don't like that languaging either, but
yeah, that's kind of good. Why not?
I see it as like a classroom. So before the souls are in sort of like the client's inner dynamic, or close in attachment to their family unit, I see there's like a bit of like a waiting room. I call it the classroom just because it's fitting with children. And there's a lot of souls that are kind of waiting more in the classroom. And so I'll actually see, some spirit babies go back and help either find their sibling in the classroom or go and kind of, again, surrender, turn themselves in and allow for a new spirit baby to come in that's more convenient. And as soon as that happens, the mother conceived. So, and is it completely in alignment? Like, you kind of wonder. I don't do anything that I'm forcing. So it's like, you're being told, I'm just going to go and do this. So it must have, and back to this word contract, it must have been something in the contract where the mother's like, I just want a baby, I'll release you. Like, I'm not worried about getting, maybe at one point her soul's like, a different type of vibrational work will come differently with this kid, and I'm comfortable with that, with the soul, right? And so there's kind of like a realignment and a whole adjustment. So I've seen that happen a little bit too, where spirit babies actually kind of leave or go away and different ones come in. Do you get that often?
Well, there's, sometimes people have a crop of babies around them.
Yeah.
Some people, I'm like, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, and like sometimes even 4 different energies. And then they're like, oh my God, right? Because some people are like, they feel so not fertile. And some people I already know, I'm like, oh gosh, you're not going to like when I say this, but there's like such a strong fertile energy around you. And sometimes, it is the baby's reluctance, but I think that more people think it's the baby's reluctance, but it's not. I don't want to say that and people are going, well, it's that damn baby, they don't want to come. But sometimes it is. Some babies, sometimes even with termination, babies are hesitant is what I've seen. They're like, I don't really know. Like, am I coming in? Am I not? Are we doing this?
So thank you for bringing it
in that way. I've seen it in that way where it's like, there can definitely be a different order because some babies look big and some look tall, and I'm going, okay, like, let's see. And for me, it gets a little noisy with all the babies. Like, I'm like, okay, who's going to be? It's a lot of people in the room right now. I always ask for one to represent everybody if they can, unless they're twins.
Right.
And so, because it's just, you know what I mean? It's just like a lot of different people talking at once, and then you're like, who am I listening to?
Right.
Who has
Yes.
the most important information right now for this mother or this father or this
Yeah.
couple, you know, because I do see both. And so, and sometimes men alone without, you know, this is when the partners, the wives make them come to me.
That's right.
Which
yeah.
I love. I love the masculine. Yeah.
Oh, me too. I love it when I have the family there. I call it the family because the spirit babies are there, and it's and
they're
it's
happy about that.
They are.
That's what's being created. If that's what's being created, obviously, if you're in a single conception, you know,
totally.
baby may still I've had babies protest too. Like, I'm going to come to the single mom, but where's my dad? Or where's my, you know, or they say, you know, we'll find that person later. But the parent has to be open to not, you know, to go into such deep avoidance around that partnership and that relationship. Because I do find women, when they get older and they've had really bad relationships, they're ready to have their baby on their own, and it's not easy, and I don't think it's supposed to be easy.
Yeah. No, I'm working with a client that chose to have a baby on her own, and is doing fabulous and thriving. And so back to contracts, I do think a lot of, like you said, some souls will kind of, you know, not, you know, won't prefer that, and then maybe is working hard to find the spouse for the mother or something, or the partner. And but I've seen others where, you know, they're completely fine, like that was a part of their soul contract. So I think that it just, I'm fascinated with this word contract, and with a lot of, and those can change, like anything can, the fluidity of it. But I think when I can communicate with my client from a place of contract, their left brain can understand it a little bit better, of like why it's this way, or the contracts give the why, I think, rather than just the feeling and the growth and the connection. But when you're mentioning terminations, I've worked with clients who've had that in the past, or contemplating, and I do find that an interesting one as well, because I think that I always say my biggest advice with it is to have, before you terminate or do anything, and I am in no place to judge, it's your body, it's your choice, is just to communicate it with the child. And to give them a heads up, to say, because I've seen some where they're like, like you said, I didn't know I was going to be sort of unattached, or let go. And so I think that or I didn't want to be, or, you know, something like that. So I say, have a really good heart to heart with that pregnancy, whether you do it, you know, alone, verbally, or in, you know, the hands of a lovely practitioner, care provider to hold space, and work out your feelings. But I also say that a lot of times when the woman is not connected, or, you know, is feeling a very heavy sense of, I just need to terminate, I need to abort, this isn't right, I also look at that being the right decision from the spirit baby end too. Like, it was probably, back to a contract, it was probably something they both needed to go through for their souls, but not necessarily to play out in a full pregnancy or birth. And so there's almost like a thank you for listening, you know, thank you, the soul saying to that, you know, that body, that host, the mother, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for trusting your intuition about it. And, you know, a lot of those clients I see have no regrets. They're like, it was the right thing to do. So I think that they had already subconsciously, whether they knew it or not, had figured out that this was not going to be great, that this wasn't to be full term, this wasn't to be a pregnancy. The soul was on par with it. Your own soul was on par with it, and it just sorted itself out without really needing to be conscious about it. So I don't think, again, nothing has to be negative. I think it's just all in the way that it's communicated. I think it's all in the way of listening to how you're feeling about it in that moment. Like, when I say the word termination, when I say the word abortion, I have no negativity around it. I think it has its right place. That's all.
And I know I'm so glad you're talking all about abortion, because I've been looking recently. It's and I have, I co-collaborated with an abortion, it's called Heart Healing for Abortion on Facebook, and I've actually had the admins have taken it over. There's such an amazing group of ladies. And I've kind of stepped away from it, but it's over thousands of women from all around the world just looking for emotional and spiritual support, but not religious. This is the big issue, right? It's the whole, Christianity, Judaism that's really taken a toll. And I'm actually going to do a podcast. I've only done one podcast in all my 60 podcasts about abortion, because I feel like people, there's a lot of pushback. Like, as you say, it's such a deeply emotional experience. And it is loss, guilt, fear, and also our culture. We see all the new laws that are being implemented right now, trying to take away women's rights and trying to shame them. Or even, I just saw a thing this morning in another country that they will, that they're going to put people to death, just for just having that choice. And so it's just the world energy. And so, there's so much involved. And what I've seen, even with termination, some women will come to me and not tell me. They do. They don't tell me, but then the baby tells me. The baby has a way of showing me. And then I ask them, and they'll go, oh, yeah, I forgot to say that. And I get it. There is shame. There is pain around it. And some aborted babies, some do come back, and not all of them. I know a lot of people ask in miscarriage and stillbirth, is this being coming back or not? And I don't see a lot of beings come back that are stillbirth. And I'm not, I'm not saying that's the overall for everybody, but it's just what I've noticed. And babies will say that, I'm sending a brother, I'm sending a sister. And then let's say a little girl dies in stillbirth, and she goes, well, I'm sending my sister, but it's not me. So, don't see it that way, which is very hard for a parent. It's like, no, because I want that girl that didn't come.
That was mine,
and so just shifting out, sorry, a little bit, I'm going from one extreme to another, but even, talking about, abortion, and it's, we need more people, and maybe you're tuning into this and you're going, oh my gosh, I've had an abortion and I've never told anybody, or I'm in pre-abortion, I'm going to go do it, but I just want more insight. I would say find yourself a full spectrum doula is what they're called. A full spectrum doula is not just a birth doula, but they work with loss. They actually work with abortion support. They'll be there with you, by your side, holding your hand, nurturing you. And I feel like if we knew more that was around, that there would be a little bit more permission to be able to be emotional, to look at the energy around it. And when I've seen babies, I've seen, like you said, there's an agreement. It doesn't feel one-sided. I'm making this choice, whether it's a lifestyle thing or whether it's a medical anomaly or not compatible with life issue, right? So there's these two different pieces, and there is so much more. And sometimes there's more to the journey is what I see with people. You may not get that answer in one moment. It's maybe evolving, especially around death, right? We're so freaked out about death.
Well, totally.
So.
And, and back to that, communication with them, because I could just see, a lot of listeners feeling how am I going to know? And it's, I think, they're waiting for somebody to stand in front of them, the baby to come in and be do this. And it's more of the impressions. And so the impressions are laid on you. Just like you were, when you go to order, this is a metaphor that's coming up, but when you go to order a coffee and that day you really feel like a latte, there's no way someone's going to convince you otherwise you need a latte today. Other times it could be a green tea and you feel just that's what you're going to have. That's what you're going to do. Those are the impressions, and that's what you want to kind of tune into more so, unless you do a lot of your own intuitive work and you do a lot of meditation and you can visualize or conjure up your spirit baby that way. I always say go with the overall gut feeling impression of it. Does that make sense? I think if that can help people too, and then just really sit with that, you marinate in that for, a good week or more if you can, and just
and
explore
then maybe,
that feeling.
It's a great way you explain it, because we do have to make choices, even if we feel fear and we're unsure. We know that when we're making those choices, that they are in the best aligned choices for our lives. We can't go so far ahead. It's being present and, of course, being more intuitively connected before that even you have to make that choice or, agreement. is helpful. This is why we practice being intuitive, trusting beings today.
Yes. No, totally. It's
so much.
I was going to say I did have one, like you said, when there's stillbirth or even death, like say months following a birth or things. But I normally, I don't normally see the soul come back except for once. I did see a stillbirth where the soul didn't kind of go to the other side. It sort of came back into the classroom area is what I want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't necessarily came back in attachment to those parents because she already had another spirit there that was supporting her through it. And, when I brought that up, she cried because she could feel him. She knew he was there. But I have seen it where they didn't really have to go through the whole processing of I've just, died, I've passed, and I need to sort of take my time before I reincarnate. I didn't really see that. It came that it was a female. She came specifically right back. And that was the only time I've seen that. I just wanted to fill in that piece because you were talking about stillbirth and, if souls continue on or if they come back straight for reincarnation or sort of come back into the pre-baby world. So yeah, I think just like you'll agree, I'm always completely fascinated. I'm like, but that kind of goes against all the like so-called left brain rules that I have that I know of this world. So I think in any time when you're doing this work, you really just have to sit so open. And
there's no definitive answer. That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
Like, people they come for the answers, but I say, you know what? Sometimes the answers aren't there, or I don't see those answers. As you said with body talk earlier, that if maybe there's a deeper issue and it needs a lot more time and connection, and whatever information you receive is really what is meant to be heard. I feel like that's just intuitive practitioner 101. It's like, I used to tell people, I'm not going to tell you something that you don't need to know, because then people freak out, like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? And I feel like maybe I say things that can definitely, what is it, like twirl the pot or like really, stir the swampy waters. And when you stir a swampy water, it's like it doesn't settle right away. It's a little uneasy. But I always feel like, but I do it in the most compassionate way, because some things, are hard to receive. It's like, oh, what is this energy body of the soul, this individual sharing? And also, what is baby's energy sharing at times? And how to be a messenger is my always thing. It's like, can I just, and not let people take and do what they want with it, really, because then they have to sit with it. But I want to,
Yeah, no, I was just going to say one more thing. It was, I think it's, like you said, when people are like, well, what about, we didn't touch on this, what about this? And it's like, that wasn't shown to me. And I always say to clients, when I'm not shown something, it's probably because it would be a disservice to you to know that.
Yeah.
Like it's part of, you need to explore that or discover that for your own growth.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff that, the client might already know, he might already know. And so that's why all the information is coming up when we're just having a conversation about it. There's some part of them that's aware whether they know it or not. And then there's other parts where you're like, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. That would be a disservice. Like it'll reveal it when you're ready and when you need it. Because that's your growth. I can't interfere. It's an interference. And it's a permission.
And I know,
thing.
maybe you get this, but I know at times some people, I'm like, oh gosh, I'm going to say this and they're going to fight me on it.
Yeah.
Do that, but
or I'll say it and it's like, you're kind of cringing because you're like, it's so raw and it's so real,
it's like, or they're just going to be, they don't want you to see it. They don't want you to really know it, but it's there. And you're like, all right, here's the deal.
Or
like,
the thing is that sometimes they want to hear something different than what you're going to say. And it's not exactly what they want to know, but I always say I'm very truthful. I'm very, blunt in the most conscious and loving, heart-centered way. I'm not blunt in any negative way. It's just I'm on. I guess it's more I'm honest because when you're imparted information like that, it sits so heavy that there's no way that you can't share it. So I sort of just say I have to share it, like it's just there. And I'll hem and haw through some part of the session. I'm like, no, it's still there. And so I'll always kind of say there's something here and it's really coming up. And I thought maybe it, wasn't part of session, but it really is part of your session, and this is what it is. And then we just talk about it. Let's just talk. How do you feel about that? And then if they're having some, really heavy emotional response to that, I know it's a charge somewhere, in their body, and I can then maybe offer the body talk to support them through that. And that's where I love where I can kind of really mix back to mixing both of the modalities, is because you're able to hold space and offer some healing component to their soul journey with their babies. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all your insights and the work that you do. I want to, if you want to leave anybody with some final insights, but also just how anyone could contact you, your website, your email.
Yeah, sure. I guess, I don't know, final words. I think it's just to continue to do some of your own work and taking your time to reflect within yourself in any journey that we're going through, whether it's fertility or, health or illness, and, finding modalities that can help you have a safe space to process, to move forward. And because, nobody has to sit in the in between of stagnation. We can get, and sometimes stagnation's okay if we need to really look at something, but there's always space to move forward. There's always space to try. And I think that, in the world of fertility, there's so much changing. There's so much upcoming. It's quite exciting. And so I just, for a lot of women that are going through any type of fertility struggles, just to keep sourcing and keep trying, and to not give up hope, and to sink into those babies and ask for their guidance. So those are some final words. To contact me, I do have a website. It's collectivehealing.ca. My email is very simple, Deanne, DEANNE @collectivehealing.ca. I'm also on Instagram under the handle of Collective Healing as well. So there's no other numbers or anything. It's just @Collective Healing for my Instagram handle. And so if you go to my website, I do have, just a couple areas of general health that just discuss what I do. And then there's an area of spirit baby mediumship work, and then how to get in contact with me on there as well. I have a submissions page. If you have any questions or, want to know a little bit more, feel free to contact me with anything.
Well, it was really wonderful connecting with you. I feel like we could probably talk for hours and days.
I know. I'm like, I don't want to be done yet. Please, no. No,
I
it's
know.
been such
so
a
much
play.
to talk about. Yeah. Really
No,
cool.
Thank you so much for having me on. I so appreciate just the space to share everything that I love and this beautiful modality. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. If you like my podcast, please subscribe and leave reviews. Thank you for joining Spirit Baby Radio Podcast this week, and please check out my newest book, Sacred Communication, A Spirit Baby Journal. Learn more about my services in supporting people all around the world in private one-on-one sessions, online classes, programs, and private VIP retreats, and you'll hear that in just a moment.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.